Ooh, we already got some chitty chatter happening.
Chitty chatter. What?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, people that are watching, how does our audio sound? Because we've been goofing around with our audio settings. I'm pretty sure I start every episode like this. Do we sound okay?
Are we okay? Hey, look. There's Ava.
Spencer, are you going to hunch down like an old man out of frame the entire show, or just
No.
for the start?
Hey, what are you saying? I got it. I'm good. Here I am.
Just curious. Do what you need to do.
Hi, Paul.
Hello. Yeah, just a little sound check for people. Do we sound okay? We tried to crank our levels down a little bit. Okay, thanks, Eric. A little brewski. All right. Well, we're already running behind, man. You ready to get started? I just got
I'm ready, man. Let's go.
I got little stuff we can kick things off with. I thought it was interesting. So there's a newsletter called Inside AR, and there's a newsletter called Inside VR, and they're both curated by a woman named Alice, and I get both to my inbox. And they decided to merge both the newsletters to become Inside XR. And I think it's because of us.
I think so too.
Is that presumptuous?
No. I think that we are changing hearts and minds on our fourth and final episode.
Oh, that's right. Welcome to the fourth and final episode. I forgot to tell everyone. Let me try this browser transition thing. Oh, I forgot. We got a little jingle, courtesy of Nick Lambert.
Yeah, there you go.
XR Talk.
Yeah.
I think we should probably get a real one at some point.
Well, I think it needs to be a little bit longer because that's just kind of that's what do you call that? A punch or a pop? Or,
it's like a bumper. Yeah.
A bumper, right?
Yeah. Hollywood talk. So you can just go to inside.com/XR and subscribe that way. I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty
Cammy
much iteration.
Cammy says, "Holy hell, that was loud."
Oh, I told you guys we were messing with the levels. Wait,
yeah,
well,
we were working.
we can never get tired of hearing it. So let me try it with lower levels. How about this?
Yeah. Now, actually, good question, Ava and Cammy. How's Paul's volume versus mine? We were noticing that like episode 2 and 3, it was pretty hot.
See, we stopped spending the first 10 minutes introducing ourselves, and we spend the first 10 minutes mic checking.
Yeah, well, we're figuring it out.
We're figuring it out.
Yeah, man.
So don't make fun of us. So that was my little you're welcome for everyone that was subscribed to 2 different things. Now you just subscribe to Inside XR, or you just watch this show, and you get all the real info you need. But you can do both.
Paul is louder and cleverer.
Clearer. Probably because I'm using a real microphone and not what AirPods.
Right. Well, maybe I should just learn how to enunciate better.
Yeah,
We could spend the next half an hour while I set up this.
No.
Here.
I'll just. Actually, you know what? I can turn Spencer up. I forgot. So I'm going to turn Spencer up,
there we go.
And I'm going to turn myself down a little bit.
Hello, my name is Spencer Lindsay, and I am co-host of XR Talk. Hello.
Only for this episode.
Oh no.
This final episode. Let's see. We got other stuff. I'm going to shamelessly plug. I'm going to shamelessly. I don't usually talk about Torch too much, but we released a new update today. It's just a little mini update, little 4.1. And Spencer actually doesn't know what this up. I need to turn Spencer up. Get turned up. Yeah, we're getting turned. We're trying. We're warming up.
Yeah. So a little hot valley mango stash. Yeah.
Can you see the video, Spencer?
Yes.
Okay.
Man.
So first of all, that's the new drawer, which is now black instead of blurry and translucent.
Oh, I like it.
And Now there's a scene
way
options, and so see you're selecting the objects from a list. You can still tap them in the scene,
right?
But you can select them from a list. And
did you just select more than one object at the same time?
Yeah, multi-select's been in.
No, through that list though.
Yeah, because multi-select's turned on. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then there's you can manipulate stuff as a group. Oh, Eric, I knew somebody was going to ask about the Android version. It's torch.app/Android, and you can put in your name for an eventual update. And then we also added...
Real quick, quick question on that. You have multiple objects selected. Can you rotate around their common center?
Yes.
Yet? Or
yes.
You can?
Yes. Let me go back to that video. So what happens here is you multi-select, and then I know this is small in this window, but I didn't want to spend a bunch of time on it. See, right now, if you use the gesture, it rotates them independently in their own centers, even though they're multi-selected. But if you use the gizmo, and see how the center, the gizmo kind of appears in the virtual center of everything that's selected. If you tap the gizmo, it treats it as a group. So then you can rotate it around a common center. So that's the trick. You got to use the gizmo. And then the other little thing is related to this. In the quick actions drawer, there's now this little select all option. And it'll just immediately select everything in the scene. Simple stuff, but people have been asking for this for a long time. And then that's using the twist gesture to rotate everything at once. And again, if you use the gizmo instead of the gesture, it'll rotate everything as a group. It's kind of cool.
Same goes with scale?
Yes. And positioning. Yeah. Yep.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. So it's only on iOS, as Eric pointed out. Thanks, Eric. And, oh, thanks. Somebody said they like Torch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thanks. We don't shamelessly plug that often. That could change it. We're going to become total sellouts though pretty soon.
Well, right, we were talking about yesterday. Oh, well, should we keep that as a secret? And,
yeah, we'll keep that a secret. Yeah, we got stuff planned.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna hit another little newsy thing. I thought this was cool. So I'm always staying on top of the WebAR stuff and the WebXR stuff. So Chrome announced that they're finally bringing the augmented reality piece of the WebXR APIs to Chrome. So WebXR APIs are kind of the web browser standard APIs for dealing with these spatial interface things like both VR and AR. And VR has been a little bit ahead of the curve and a little bit more supported than WebXR on this stuff. And so it's cool because they're finally introducing some examples of WebAR happening in mobile Chrome, and it's a really good step in the right direction. The downsides to it are, for now, it's only going to be available through a special browser you download. So with all this browser-based stuff, both VR and AR, especially on mobile phones, Apple and WebKit kind of run the show on the iOS side, and so most iPhone users use the default browser, and it's kind of to get them to install a special browser just to use a VR AR thing is just as bad as having them install an app. So, but this is a great step in the right direction because Firefox has been really on top of it, and Chrome's they're kind of playing off of each other a little bit, and so this is great. Obviously, on Android, you're going to be able to get this stuff a lot easier. So I thought that was a really great announcement, and then they've got a couple demos, and then they actually did a little blog post here that kind of goes into some of the stuff I just talked about, like the WebXR device API and things like that. So that is at it had a really easy to remember URL, web.dev/web-ar. And we're gonna clean up our YouTube, and we're gonna try to keep track of the things we talk about and share more. So people can look this stuff up later.
Also, I just posted those three links that you had in our show notes. Posted that into general in XR Talk. So if you're on our Discord, you can go and look in the general tab. on Discord. Look for XR Talk, or actually go to talk.xrtalk.net. Are we net?
Yeah, we're net.
Yeah.
Net. Yeah, we're gonna fix all that stuff up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is our final episode, so we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So moving on. By the way, we have a lot of new people here, and we're still figuring this out. We're not necessarily we got a lot of stuff going on while we talk about this. So we love questions and comments. We're both watching the chat, and that's always great when people have ideas or comments. And I really love seeing all these new names. So that's awesome. So if there's something you want us to cover, and then we have our Discord, like Spencer said, chat.xrtalk.net. And I'm trying to get in the habit of asking ahead of time, what do people want to talk about? And we can talk about it. And I think we're going to keep up this weekly pace for a bit. And so that's kind of nice. Yeah. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to cover, speaking of our Discord, our Discord went a little, it got a little hype a few days ago, thanks to Eric, and he just started posting all this stuff, and a lot of it was great, and we had a lot of good conversations around it. A lot of it seemed to revolve around what's near and dear to Spencer's heart, which is a lot of this volumetric capture, photogrammetry, and kind of creating assets from the real world type of stuff, body tracking, all this. So it just so happens that yesterday, Jeff Powers, who's at Occipital, and I'll let Spencer tell you more about Occipital, but they made this announcement for Canvas IO that runs on standard phones. And so I'm going to show this little video real quick. And then Spencer, you're really the expert in this stuff, so you can just kind of talk over it and
just yammer over the top of it. So
I'll turn off the audio.
This is Canvas, and this has been around in several different kind of like iterations for a while. Apparently, this is running completely on the phone instead of having to use the structure sensor.
And we were just talking, or uploading it to the cloud.
Or uploading it to the cloud, right?
Yeah.
So this is all on the phone, and which is pretty damn amazing. I mean, that you could do this basically without without an internet connection if you needed to. The limitations with this are that it's a 3 DOF scan. So that anything that's behind something is going to have a shadow. So you're not going to collect all of the data as you would if you were using like the Ubiquiti 6, the display land stuff. But
so can we pick that apart a little bit?
Yeah. So
what you're saying is right here, like, because we'll kind of step through this video right here. These are the types of stuff we look at when we see these videos get posted on. We pick them apart. So to your average person, they're like, holy crap, this person just scanned their house super fast and it looked super dope. And these videos are so well, but these videos are so well prepared for what they're showing because it's going out on social and it's a sizzle video. So I think the first thing to point out is this part where it has you stand still. And it has you move, but you don't walk around. Right. So what you're saying is you stand in one stationary when you do the scan in this case.
So the way that this works and the way that it worked before with the structure sensor. So I bought one of these when I was at AWE from those guys, and with the structure sensor on it, it's doing it through IR. Josh at Torch and I were talking this morning about how the heck are they doing this if they're only sitting in one position and moving around the room like this. And we figured that they're probably using the little tiny parallax movements that are just inherently going to happen when you are hand holding something and looking around the room. They're using those to hint at the depth. So what that's going to give you is something that looks really great from one point of view. but it's not going to give you a 3D model that you can then go and look behind that couch. So this demo that they're showing right now is really cool looking, but you'll notice that there are no obstructions in that room. The only obstruction is the only obstruction is the chandelier, and they never look at that when they're looking at the mesh. So, and this right here, there's shadows, right? Because they stood in one spot and they looked around. They probably stood in that little circle spot at the foot of the bed.
Right.
And they looked around. And it's great for some purposes. And the fact that you can build this mesh and texture it on a freaking phone without having to go to the cloud, it's like, hell yeah. They've done a great job there. But this is not a full 6 degree of freedom parallax photogrammetry thing yet. I mean, it really can't be until you start moving around in the world. Right. So they're somehow deriving depth, I think, from micro movements of the camera of the phone. Yeah.
Well, they're using, there's some computer vision stuff that kind of what they call it structure from motion, which is if you even just pan across, it knows that things, if you kind of roughly know the scale of any one thing, you can use that as a reference point to kind of build up the dimensions of other stuff. To me, what this is, it's not replacing like walking around like Displayland style or using like a Connect to scan an environment. But what is cool to me is this is what Matterport used to be. I don't know, like 4 or 5 years ago, where you had like a $30,000 camera. You'd put it in the middle of the room, and it would shoot this like video or this photo with some depth inferred from it. And now you can do it on a phone. So it's kind of that's cool.
So I was having a conversation with Timothy Porter just recently, and I always forget the name of his company, and he'll kill me if he's listening. But they do photogrammetry solutions for small scale volumetric capture studios. So people who have got a whole bunch of Azures, or they're kind of like rolling their own. They will take that data and turn it into good, clean, smooth photogrammetry output. And I was talking to him today about like where are we going with this? How can I tweeted an excerpt from a talk that I gave, or an interview that I gave when I was giving a talk down at Deliver last year, and I was asked, like, when are we going to have this stuff on a phone? When can we have volumetric video on a phone? When can we just snap our fingers and capture the world? And the answer to that is as soon as you have a phone that can be everywhere at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be able to see behind an object in order to recreate that object, unless you're using, some kind of GAN, crazy deepfake algorithm that knows what a chair is supposed to look like and then builds the back of it. But I mean, the stuff that you're going to be able to do on a phone kind of easily and simply, you have to have more than one position to look at it from. So.
Yeah, what excites me about it is, and I know I've told people this before, and this will probably not be the last time I say this on this show, but if you think about, it was not that long ago that taking a photo cost a ton of money, took a ton of time, required special equipment. We're talking back to the 10 type days. It took 18, 20 minutes to take a photo of a person, and they had to sit there with a weird smile.
Yeah.
And then we started getting like Polaroids, and then we started getting disposable cameras, and it was like, oh, we can take more photos, and it's not that big. And we got 1 hour photo development. But it was still this right? It wasn't that long ago. You would take pictures on a camera and then have to go to the drugstore and then wait a few days to get your pictures back. And then how much like now there's almost negative cost to taking a photo, right, with our phones.
And also they wouldn't develop your dirty pictures that you took either.
That
and
too.
They'd
Thanks
be
for
like,
taking it.
no. And
thanks for taking it
there'd
to
be
the
a little
gutter.
note, you know, they'd be like, hey, no, you can't. No, sorry.
But now we snap photos that aren't like this precious capturing, I better be careful thing. It's like, oh,
We throw it away.
I need to remember what the barcode is at the Home Depot hardware label, you know, like, and so the cost of taking a photo has gotten so cheap and so convenient that it, like, we've become a more visual society, right? Like everything is. So what excites me about the occipital thing and all this stuff really is that it's marching towards, we're going to be able to capture more than just a frame, a 2D frame, static frame of stuff. We're going to be able to capture things at scale, in motion, in 3D. And if you start to think about, like, kind of like what they showed in the demo video for Canvas, it's like, well, I captured this room, and now that I have this capture, I can measure anything in that room I need to whenever I feel like it. And then you think about, well, I could pre-visualize with that. So all the things that like I just see that same path happening for volumetric 3D objects, like how we have photos and video now. It's not gonna be that far off from where we'll be able to do that.
Okay, and I appreciate the optimism, and I think that it you know, yes, things grow like that.
You're gonna hurt my feelings. Like, I can feel it.
Well, no, I'm going to ask you how you think that's going to be accomplished. And I actually have an idea for this that I talked with Timothy about this morning. But so let's say we're going to democratize volumetric video, or democratize really good clean captures, even of just a still. Right. Generally, a still of a person needs all of the photos to be taken at the same time. So if we're going to make that a consumer product, how would you I want to hear your ideas on this, and then I'll tell you what my ideas are. But how would you accomplish that in a consumer or even prosumer grade package? What would you do?
You mean capturing anything volumetrically?
Yeah, or a person, or your dog, or
I think you gotta, like, if we're talking about consumer level, I think you gotta fit within some comfortable.
Just said drone swarms.
Yeah, you open your pockets, and all of your quote unquote phones just swarm out of your pockets and go around their little particles. No, I think everybody's really comfortable with this idea of, I'm holding a camera and I'm moving around in space, and I think there's a lot of mileage in making that easier and faster to use. And I think, you, like, as far as from the consumer perspective, if you like, that's what I think's cool about the Canvas and Displayland is, like, a lot of people get the idea of, oh yeah, I'm kind of recording a video, sort of. Right now it's because of how they're using AR tech to do kind of the tracking and get the telemetry part of it out of it. They've got to make you do these kind of perhaps sometimes unnatural motions and moves. And so I think there's a lot of mileage there that, like, yeah, like, I would like to see it where I just wave my phone across the subject, and maybe I do get holes and occlusions, and it's not fully perfect. And I think people will learn, like, oh, well, if I want to get the whole, like, I want to get this cool, of this current scene, like, I see this cool car and all I really care about is the front end of it. I'm just going to walk around the front end of it. And I know that if I don't walk around the backs, people aren't that dumb that, like, I know if the camera can't see something that I'm not going to capture it.
So here's the other thing too.
Are you going to tell me people are dumb?
No. I was going to say no. I don't know how to pronounce Albin's last name. Is it Denoyle?
Albin from Sketchfab.
Yeah,
it's his last name.
So he's
very nice, recently. By the way. I just don't want to butcher his last name.
I don't know how you pronounce his last name, but he's I met him at that New York City volumetric capture thing. he got married, and he had all of his friends hold their iPhones at different levels all around him in this. And I'll post a where is it? It's medium.com. Here he is.
There's another thing he did while you're doing that. He used an old school Kinect to volumetrically capture his kids' first steps. So he's got a point cloud of his kids' first steps.
Which is amazing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I just posted it in XR Talk. No, I just posted it in the YouTube channel, and now I'm going to post it in the Discord.
Cammy said that he's nice too. That she thinks he's nice too.
Nice. Okay. So what he did was he had all of these people, all of the people in his wedding. They all, and if you take a look at that link that I just put up there, they were all standing around him and his wife, and they all took a picture at the same time. And then he was like, "Now everybody send me that photo." And so then everyone sent the photo, and then you come up with this like really cool moment in time of you and all of your friends that were in family that were around you, and it's a big freaking volumetric capture stage. You know, I love this, and that works. That works wonderfully. You know,
what's also cool about that is all of a sudden you see what is beyond the view of any one camera. So it reminds me of our friend Michael Green. His wedding, which I officiated,
right?
Humble brag, but the bigger humble brag is the fact that Neil Stevenson was there, but he was taking our pitch, like he was the one behind the camera. So we've got this group photo of friends, and you'll never know unless we tell you that and he was like getting down at crazy angles too, right?
He was like he was down on one knee and like, okay, work with me,
Yeah, so it'd be really cool to be able to show more of the moment like that. I don't know, but then I just said that out loud, and I thought, God, we already share too many of our moments. But
okay, so
maybe
go ahead. I wanted to finish that thing up because this was actually pointing towards my idea that I kind of thought in my head this morning, which was 40 Views has the might and power of INRIA in France. They're like, big think tank, very very intense research facility, and they've done a whole bunch of math on which camera should be at which position, and so they have 32 machine vision cameras in their system. This is HoloSys, right? And Microsoft, I think, is like 114. They're working with like smaller numbers, but what's really beautiful about this 40 view system, and I will get to my point, is that they have a very small number comparatively with everyone else, a very small number of cameras that give them a really, really great output. And so it's not only the capture, it's the position of the capture, and then it's all of the algorithms that they built on the compute side to take advantage of those different angles and stuff like that. So here's my thought. Using that same kind of smart, thinking about it really clearly before you actually go to market. You've got a tripod, right? And you put the tripod in the middle of the room, and you put it at a certain height. You know what the height is above the floor, and then that's
your calibration to the.
That's your
scale.
Calibration to the floor,
right?
Right, and to scale, right? Because you know how. And then on top of this thing, you put your little ball that has 32 little green lasers on it, and that you turn it on, and you have 32 little dots all over the room. And then you take your really inexpensive, mass-produced little cameras that are purpose-built, and you stick them on the wall, and they're battery operated and Wi-Fi, and you get those guys into those positions based on where this thing said it should be, and then you and now you've got your camera set up, and then then you've got to do Wi-Fi. You got to capture all of that video over Wi-Fi, which is insane. So so never mind.
Well, that's okay. This is a perfect example. I think we talked about this in the Discord chat also, or a few days ago. It's like the funny part is when you start brainstorming with like-minded people, and you know enough to see the bits and pieces of how to make this stuff maybe happen. And then I'm glad I saw Josh is in the chat. I'm glad Josh is here because he's the king of this, which is like you start brainstorming.
I'm sitting there, I'm talking about it, and I'm like, fuck, what's he going to say? Oh, shit, he's probably, like, I can hear his eyes rolling from where he is. Right
You're forgetting this entire part of it that's okay. We just keep iterating.
Well, yes, and.
Yeah, right. Yes, and. That's right.
Can you take me off a big? Yeah, there you go. I didn't want to be on big screen anymore because I'm going to go outside.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. We're doing a little change of venue.
It's like a Mr. Rogers moment. Come along. Yeah. Follow us.
With me.
I wish I had a cool. I don't have a cool sound effect. I don't know. I actually don't know what some of these sound effects are. Someone try them. Oh. I don't know what that is, but it's a triangle, but I don't know why. What is glockenspiel?
Glockenspiel. That's yeah.
That's nice.
It's one of those.
That's nice. Well,
all right. So let's get back to XR.
Well, we should probably we're let me look at the time here. We're exactly halfway through. We should talk about black.
Yeah.
I hope is Alfredo here? I hope he's here. By the way, we said this last episode. We're gonna start having guests. I think we're finally getting comfortable enough with the basics to be able to have people on.
Agreed.
Okay, so this is come on. Oh, can you let's hear the jingle one more time?
XR Talk
by Nick Lambert. He should have put that in there by Nick Lambert. Okay, so I've thought about how I'm going to try to break this down because how this came up was Alfredo. He's Alfredo_XR, I think, I'm pretty sure, on Twitter. Really awesome, has all these great thoughts all the time. And he basically proclaimed, like AR glasses, view through AR displays, can't render black. So you can't sell black objects through that view. You can't show this or do that. And just made a statement. And I've heard that a lot. We've all heard that a lot. And so let me first talk about why he said that and why people believe that and why it's true to some degree. Wow, thanks for the palm of your hand right in everyone's face. So if you think about AR glasses, you're looking through a transparent piece of material. And the virtual imagery that you're seeing is being produced by light from some projector somewhere, and is being injected into that reflective material and then bouncing into your eyeball, while at the same time you're looking at the real world. And ideally those two things combine in such a way that they look good. And if you think about it, those are photons, right? Those are photons being generated and being placed on this substrate in front of you, and then they're bouncing in and kind of coming in along with the photons from the real world.
Can I make a Photoshop analogy?
Sure. I need all the help I can get explaining this one. So
if you have a picture of your living room and you want to put some text hovering in the living room, and don't even worry about getting it the right perspective, and so it looks like it's actually along the wall or whatever. Just text hanging in the living room. If you take white text in Photoshop, you take your background and then you put some white text on top of it, and you set that, or let's say you put some black text on top of it, and you have that set to normal mode. Your blend mode is normal, or your blend mode is multiply. Then you will see that black text. If you set it to add to if you set those pixels to add, it will disappear completely, and that is what an optical see-through lens does with the content. It adds to the world. So if you have a black shader that has no reflections and no
don't spoil my speech.
So then Paul would say,
well, no, that's right. That's why they call them additive displays, right? You can only add two photons together. You can only add light against light, and it can only get brighter, right? There's no such thing as a negative brightness photon or a darkening photon, right? So
well, you can do that. You can do that, but you have to use like a 20-watt laser, and you can only do it for like a microsecond, and then your brain steams and your head explodes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And let me go ahead and bust this one too, because a lot of people are like, well, eventually there'll be a little LCD that puts little black areas. But the problem is that if we're looking around the real world, we're focusing on stuff out in the real world. What is a sharp little tiny black dot this close to your eye becomes a big gray splotch when you look past it. And so that's just not even that's a non-starter. So a lot of people think about that too. So how do you darken? How could you have black things? How can you have shadows? So that's why people kind of are like, you can't do black and it's just not going to work. So then I'm going to talk about how we do see black, or how I believe we see black. And then we can talk about how you can use that when you create this content for glasses to work.
Right.
So, photons come from some source. Did you change your audio?
No.
I just got echoey for some reason. So photons come from some source, right? The sun, a light bulb, a projector bulb, whatever. And man, the thumb in the camera thing is.
Well, I turned my volume down, so maybe it's not going to bounce so much.
So the photon comes from somewhere, and then it bounces off something before it hits your eye, right? And whatever that thing it bounces off of, depending upon the material it's made out of, changes the wavelength and the color that you receive, right? So colors are just reflections, right? So if something's red, that means it's only reflecting the red to you, and that's what you're seeing, right? And so that's how we process in the real world color and how we see it just generally. And so then if you think about also how we see is we dart our eyes around and we fill in little voids, and our mind fills in a ton of detail. And that's why eyewitnesses get things wrong all the time. It's why you can't see every possible thing in your field of view at any one time. We have to filter it out so we can process it. And so
did you know that women actually see better peripherally than men do?
Yes.
They and I think that's kind of amazing and neat.
Well, I think that came out while we were working on headsets, and we were like, oh, do we need to think about how content is perceived differently? And
you know where we started talking about it was in a bar with Greg Broadmoor and Haley. And we were drunk, and they had a whole bunch of toys on the back bar.
I probably wasn't drunk.
You weren't, but I definitely was. And we started running through all the people in the bar, and we'd have like a little dinosaur, the green dinosaur. We'd hold it, 90 degrees from where they were looking, and then ask them when they could see what color it was. And then ask them when they could see what it actually was by just looking this way. And I remember Haley could like see it when we were just like at 90 degrees. She was like, "Oh, that's a green dinosaur," So
well, we also don't
Greg
see color.
And I were out at like 20% or something.
We also have light receptors outside of our even so we can only see color to a certain field of view, and then you can see like but we can actually perceive that light is present, but we can't actually technically see it. And we used to talk about, could you flash little LEDs at the right times? Because what when you do, your reflex is to turn your head. So could you get someone to turn their head if you flash a light in just the right way? So yeah, so we're constantly scanning basically, and we're constantly looking around. We're filling in all these details. So back to this idea of reflection, and color is reflection. So black is when color doesn't reflect to you. So nothing projects black, nothing emits black. And so how do we see black objects? Well, if you really look at any one black thing carefully, you'll see that there is light coming back to you. It's highlighting off the shape of the object. It's got undulations that cause it to change in tone. So like if it has a sheen, you'll get some light back. And so that's why the Vanta black stuff is so freaky, because it absorbs all of that of any material that it's on, right? And so you don't get any signal back. And so I actually I'm a little skeptical of Vanta black. I think on photos it looks really great because the camera really can't deal with it. But I think it's almost impossible to have a true black, right? So like your glasses right now, it's not that we're seeing black coming off your glasses. What we're seeing is the skin around your glasses, and the fact that we're not getting any signal from that, right? From where the glasses are. And so that's one part. So immediately our brain, if we expect to see an object based on the other context around it, and we're not getting anything back, you naturally fill in a darkness and a darkening, you see a black. If you know what the object is, you definitely do. You totally fill it in. Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And to quote our friend Josh, because let's say we have that picture of the living room again, and you have a black sphere floating in front of you. The black sphere, you can definitely show the highlights of that sphere, but you're going to see the background behind it. You can't darken the background.
Hold on. Yes, that is what a skeptic would say, and you would be almost right.
I am the skeptic today. Yeah.
So we used to have
I just want to say Jeff Rudiger is online, which I think is hilarious.
I'm glad he's not heckling us yet.
Yeah. So he kind of is a little bit. No, he's actually he's all thumbs up. Anyway,
so we had a demo where we would show a creature that had very large eyeballs with the whites of their eye, and they would have very large pupils, and we would say, what are the colors of the pupils? And everybody would say black. And then you'd explain the whole additive and thing and say, well, why are you seeing black? Because we can't render black. Nothing can, you can't emit black. And they would say, well, it's because we're in a dark room and it's probably clear in the middle, but you're putting it. And then we would hold up a piece of white poster board, physical piece of board behind the character. And I'm not claiming that they saw pure dark black, but what they did still see, even in that situation, is a darkening.
Right.
And so,
because it's a recognizable thing. Pupils are black. That's something that we know. That helps. And so we expect them to be, right?
That helps. And that's what I was getting at. If it's a known object, it's easy to trick people. You can say, this is if I put a black 8-ball from a billiard ball in a Magic Leap, and you looked at it and it was sitting there, and it had specular highlights. It had some mild reflection of the room, the quote unquote room. You would see a black sphere. You would see a black ball, because you also know it's an 8-ball. You would enhance it.
If it had the 8 on it, right?
Yeah.
Because then I'm looking for black. Right.
Yeah. So known objects are kind of easy. Cause like I said, your glasses, nobody's going to question what's causing the lack of light coming from that rim-shaped object surrounding your head and eyeballs, right? It's just a black pair of glasses. Even though we're getting no signal from the glasses themselves, we're getting signal from the light bouncing off your skin, and the glass part is a huge, so Our brains do this with everything. We fill in everything. So then you say, well, what about when, like you're saying, like, what if you don't know what it is? And so then you get into, and this is where we start kind of blending into the tricks a little bit, is you give a lighted edge, or you give a sense of form to something, and then you'll also fill it in. So I meant to bring it up. So somebody posted them doing a video conference in a Magic Leap headset, and it was a guy. They were trying to make him look like a quote unquote hologram, and we will use that word very little on this show. Yeah. But it was a 2D video, and he was black screened out, right? And he was like, "Oh, look, I'm standing in this kitchen," but he had dark hair, and because they did a black transparent like backdrop, he was live streaming. They were live streaming him. And so he had a black backdrop. He wasn't chroma keyed out. And so when that black panel came up, because you didn't have any kind of border to give you context, the background dropped out of the image. Right. But like he also was holding a guitar, and the air hole of the guitar looked black, and because it was surrounded by other elements.
I'd have to see that.
Yeah. Well, so the reason why I brought it up is I actually commented on it when I saw it, because he also had dark hair. And so when he turned his head, he wasn't lit very well. And so when he turned his head, the back of his head disappeared into the void.
Right. You're like, oh God.
Yeah. It was like at a brain scanner. It's like it's just a half a face. But if they would have fill lit him or backlit him and just given him the slightest little halo of hair fuzz, it would have been black or dark. I'm not gonna claim you can produce jet black through a transparent display, but you can have content that somebody will say that is a black car, which is what Alfredo's original comment was. Like, you could never sell an all black car through AR with glasses, and that if you combine these things. So then the thing we talked about in the last episode about
real quick. Real quick. I want to make sure that I got what you're saying is that with clever lighting, with the correct type of lighting, and specifically like rim lighting a darker shape, that you can bring this concept of black into optical see-through by controlling your lighting correctly.
Well, only in that case, because that was a video. Like it was controlling the lighting of the content in the video.
Well, we control the lighting and the content in 3D stuff all the time.
Yeah, no. Well, that's what I was going to get to. But for that particular example, that was a real person, right? And so, even if you were wearing a hat and like right now, that little bit of light coming off your ear from the light behind you will give you enough kind of like fill in. Oh, that's your happy light.
That's my happy lamp. Yeah. I'm happy.
If you live in the Pacific Northwest, you got to have happy lights.
Happy lamp. Yeah. See, this is the screen station, and then the happy lamp. Right there. There you go.
So that like if you start to once you kind of unlock this idea of I can create a sense of darkness by cleverly manipulating the content to give the eye something to grab a hold of. So I will say this: we used to also play, and I think this is still true. If you played just a video, we used to play movie trailers, right, on the hardware, and it would have no UI. So imagine a video of a movie trailer playing with no visual reference at all, other than the content of the video. And when that video would fade to black between scenes or between the title screen or whatever, it would disappear. It would kind of like vaporize a little bit. And then when the content came back up with more elements and visual elements, then the black quote unquote parts of the content would just kind of be there. And nobody would ever say, this is weird. I'm looking at something that doesn't have black. And it was actually kind of cool because it would like if the screen went totally black, the room was just normal, and then the content would reappear. But if you'd have put a white border or any sort of border around that video, it would prolong the effect. I don't think it would be, and again, I'm not saying it's black,
No,
then,
you're talking about tricking the eye. I mean, this is what we've done in video games since we started making them. As you know, we're using tricks to make you think you're seeing something much more difficult to do than we actually are doing.
So then, if you take it a little further, and we talked about this last episode, the Weta folks put out a game where you fly a rocket around
I love that.
around the room. By the way, I got my Magic Leap fixed. I'll talk about that in a minute. But because it was dumb. But it's lighting the environment, right?
Just one second. Cammy, I'm not in a basement. Look, see, there's the outdoors. So go ahead.
I'm in the basement. So
in the murder basement.
If you think about shadows in the real world, everybody assumes that shadows are darkening, but they're actually not. They're occluding light, right? Like if any shadow that is cast, it's not that the object is emitting dark light on the ground or on the surface of something. It's that it's occluding the light from hitting the surface behind the object, right?
Right.
So that's yet another example of we don't really see in darkening. If you kind of change your mindset around, we don't see dark. What we see is lack of light. Right. It really unlocks a lot of interesting stuff you can do with this content, and that's why I really wanted to talk about this, because I think we like we said in the last episode, we've always begged people to think about that, because man, the more you can create the content that responds in a more realistic way that our eyes and minds are used to, that's when some really crazy stuff can happen. And so the one thing I wanted to point out as related to this is a trick we used to use all the time. And I've seen people do it here and there, but how do you get a virtual object to cast light or shadow on a real world surface? And it's real easy. You get a mesh of that real world thing, and the mesh is actually clear. So you can't, you see the real world. But the mesh can.
The mesh also has a reflected surface.
Well, the mesh actually ever so lightly lightens the object that it's on, or that it's. Think of it like a piece of saran wrap that isn't shiny, and it's creating a ever so slightly lighter version of a real world object, right?
Mm-hmm.
You sure you're with me? I feel like you're not with me.
No, I'm.
Oh, we've done this. So, like with the tabletop.
Yeah, we've done this, but it wasn't that we were creating. We basically were just throwing a spotlight on the object, and then having a environmental geometry.
Right.
And then that geometry was, in our case, when we first started doing it, it was completely black, but it had a reflective property to it, so it had a little bit of shine to it, and so it would be illuminated by the light, where there was no shadow,
right?
But then the shadow
would naturally occur.
I've actually got something in my hard drive somewhere.
Yeah,
it's got an exact example of that.
Probably can't show it, but we could do a demo.
Right.
But effectively what you're doing is I used to say we were hyper lighting things. Right. Like you take a real world tabletop.
That's right.
And you would lighten it just a little bit, so all the detail and everything you would see of the real world was there. And then if you do it subtly enough, it doesn't feel like, oh, this is kind of a fake version of this table. It's like, no, this little virtual character is casting a shadow on this table.
Okay, I see what you're saying about the saran wrap. Okay, can I try to explain?
Yeah, please, because
all right. So
I've never said some of this stuff out loud.
No, this is great. No, this is like Jeff just said. This is like 2014 all over again. So you take a kind of a frosted, very thin piece of Lexan, and you put it over your table, and that is that's something that will accept the light. It also just looks like the table, so it's basically see-through, but it's got just a little bit of a surface to it. Yep. And then you put a light shining down onto it, which kind of illuminates it a little bit more than it would be in the normal light. And then your character is standing on top of it, throwing a shadow. The shadow completely obliterates the
lightning.
The lightning.
It's right. So it's not darkening the pixels. It's occluding the lightning.
Right. So what you get is something that looks like a shadow, which is actually just the real world value of the table, and everything around it is just a little bit higher, albedo. The problem that we had with that was where do you stop that lightning? How do you? And we started using spotlights with fall off so that we could kind of like gently, fade it onto the corner until it went off the edge. But yeah, so
that's how you make. That's how you can. That's how a virtual character and virtual content, virtual content can cast shadows on the real world, is by also having a way to lighten the real world, and so that's not exactly the black thing, but it's just tying.
But it's another one of those like tricks.
It's a trick, and it's
as you're,
and the reason why it ties in a little, like, so Unity recently did a blog post about their toolkit, and their Mars stuff is going to be coming out this year, and they talked about some of the UI stuff they do, and what they do is they want to create drop shadows behind UI elements, and so what they do is they have a UI panel that is translucent white. And then wherever the button is in front of the panel, they occlude it's like a soft occlusion of the white around the button. So what you get is this sense of, here's this floating panel, and this button is casting a soft dark shadow on the panel. And
but it's
the same thing. It's the same thing, Yeah. So the short answer is to all of that is nothing emits black, and it's okay because our brains are really easy to trick, and you can have black things in optical view through AR. If it's easier, if it's a familiar object. I did have one more example. We did have a very I'm just trying to be careful not to spill anything confidential, but there was a demo with a very unfamiliar object that was 100% black, and it was moving, and most people that saw it for the first time had never seen it before, and it had no backlighting, it had none of the tricks to give it form except specular highlights. So it was a very shiny black thing. And so because it was moving and it was animated and you could kind of track the specular highlights on it. Right. Again, I'm not going to tell you anybody said, "Oh my gosh, that's a pure black, dark black object floating in space." But everyone agreed that it looked like either a lot of people said it kind of looked like a black version of Chrome because it was so shiny, or that it had like a darkening, it had a dark look to it. So you can definitely do dark hinting, but it's just a totally different way of thinking because we're so used to the ability to just paint black in on a screen. And by the way, like an LCD screen, it doesn't emit black, it blocks out the light. I mean, like, this is not a crazy it's not like there's some crazy high-tech thing going on here on the glasses side. It's just understanding how we perceive these things.
Right.
So that was very therapeutic to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, and
instead
actually,
of through tweets
to dive into that a little bit more, and maybe also next time talk a little bit about creating, like, I have this thing that I still haven't seen happen yet, and I tried to make happen at ML, and I would love to see somebody else come up around it. Animation over real world objects, the ability to have characters jump up onto your desk and not look like like they're procedurally animated, but it makes them look like an artist was on it. That whole I could go on for hours about that one. We do have just a little bit more time, and we have one more minute. But I did want to.
We can go over. Everybody's always encouraging us to go longer. Yeah.
Because there's one in our notes here, which is you got the Magic Leap back, and you can talk about that.
That one's easy. I said in the last episode that my Magic Leap was dead, and it turns out that my Magic Leap was dead because my charger was dead. So I went all the way through text. Like I sent a video to a hardware engineer and said, "Here's what my Magic Leap's doing," and he said, "Oh, it's a low voltage problem." And it's like when it started acting up a few months ago. And it's right. Like, yeah, no shit, it's a low voltage problem. It was not charging the battery at all. So, so last night on a whim, I plugged it in overnight, and I'm like, surely this thing's fully charged, and it would not boot up. And I was like, I wonder if I tried a different. So I plugged my MacBook Pro brick into it, and 5 minutes later, it's starting to light up, and it's all up to date. It's fully working.
It's working now.
It's really funny. Yeah. And then let's see. Eric had a quick question. Are we the reason Unity was more supported than Unreal in the ML SDK? I would actually.
I don't think we can either confirm nor deny.
Well, I don't know if Josh is still on here, but Josh was the head engineer of the SDK. We were the reason why any other engines were supported at all, and I mostly credit Josh with that. And sometimes I would say from a technical standpoint, the SDK can support pretty much any modern engine, but sometimes there's strategic reasons why things get supported more than others. So, but yeah, we were the reason why the SDK supported so many different workflows.
Well, I think also when we first got there, we were Unity people. So yeah, sure, we were using Unity to do tests and stuff like that.
You'd be crazy to put out a piece of hardware without support Unity.
Right, and at that point too, Unreal was not that great on mobile.
Nope.
And so that was another reason why we kind of kept on the Unity path for a long time.
Yep. Now there's like at least 6. I mapped them out not that long ago. There's about 7 different ways you can build content for Magic Leap. So that's why I'm excited to have one back. So maybe we could build some of the stuff you're talking about and share it for people to look at.
So I would love to hear and also tell favorite VR experiences.
Okay.
And I know that you went online and tried to find some really cool VR experiences, and we can talk about that.
Well, I mean, so when we did ask the Discord chat, hey, what do we want to talk about? Dave Berry asked about like our favorite VR experiences. So Eric just wants us to keep talking.
Eric,
we can talk a little longer.
Settle down, Eric.
We're gonna go a little longer. So
go to your room.
I love the Quest. I like it's the first piece of VR hardware I've bought since the Vive. It's true, like we've talked a lot about this last episode. It's a true just plop it on and go type of thing. I know some people have reservations around it being a Facebook product and property and all that, which is not, I'm not judging or disagreeing with that at all. So for me right now, my go-to VR device is the Quest, and I am not particularly interested in shooting and killing things. I mean, I will. I'm not a total, but like it kind of cuts if I'm not interested in just blowing stuff up all the time. That kind of eliminates a lot of stuff. But everybody. It's a Beat Saber machine for me for the most part, in a browser, a VR browser. So for me, I don't have a ton of stuff I play on it. I do try to go in and check in and see what's new. I'm sort of interested in the social stuff, but to be honest with you, I signed up for a bunch of the different social things. VR chat. Have you tried VR chat? It's so popular, but it's so weird, and I just can't.
Well, you and Josh and I got into
half and half.
half and half.
Yeah, that's Max's thing.
Kind of
it's
fun.
awesome.
Yeah.
But it's also limited. Like, I guess that's the other part of it. There's a lot of limited replayability. So as far as like the thing I go to constantly, I'm just basic, and it's Beat Saber, because we've got a little high score competition going, and your girlfriend just wipes us all on everything. So I know you got a lot more to say on it, but basically it's the browser. And I try to use I download Firefox Reality for Quest. It's really great. And actually, both the Oculus browser and Firefox Reality, if you just go to their default homepage, they curate a little bit of WebXR stuff in there, web VR stuff. And you can kind of see like some cool web-based VR. So I do like that. But I haven't seen a ton of stuff that I'm just like blown away by. Maybe I'm just jaded. But so that's kind of... So when I go peek in the store, I'm just like, that's another, I don't know. I haven't seen anything that's really, the other part of it is like, because I did have a Vive for so long, like Job Simulator and all that stuff. I've done it. It's cool. It's funny, but I don't need to do it again.
Yeah. I wish I had figured out which app I downloaded, but just recently I was like, I want a new game, I'm gonna try a couple new games, and there was like kind of a X-Wing fighter kind of game that is pretty fun for a while, and then it gets boring. You're doing the same shit over and over and over, and then there's another one called something Construction, and it's kind of you wake up and you're in this weird modified Earth, and it's and that's really fun for the first, half an hour, 45 minutes. And then it's not that great, like kind of boring. I'm like we can't just try to port games over. And I just want to say that my most impactful VR experience was actually in Tilt Brush. And a couple weeks ago, my mom passed away, and about a week ago, I took a structure scan that I had done of my mom back in like 2014, 2012, something like that. And so I've got this non-textured white model of my mom, and she's sitting on a stool, and she's all happy and perky, and she's not dead, and she's and so I put that into Tilt Brush, and then I sat there and was hanging out with my mom and painting around her and doing artwork on her and stuff, and it was really kind of a powerful experience. And that is the kind of stuff I think that we can do more of. That stuff that's not just like you said, like, I don't want to just shoot things and kill things. And, Beat Saber's awesome. It's fun as hell. But like what else can we do that impacts us a little deeper, So,
did you,
you get that pic? Do you have that picture of Ashley that I did? Like
no,
that?
Well, no. I was surprised if you didn't hear or if you didn't see this. Have you seen this?
Oh, that is so freaking creepy. That, no,
it's just like what you were talking about, though.
But I did that personally, and I'm right now for the first time telling people about this personal thing that I did as an exploration of my artwork and my emotions about my mom. Like I think that that's a great way to lay this out. This is like a reality TV show where I watched that thing. It's crazy. That woman is like just wrecked, and they spent a ton of time on it. And I don't know. That seems creepy as hell.
But it was in the news recently. But so Benedict Evans is he was an investor at Andreessen Horowitz, and he tweeted I don't know, just this last week, and basically poo-pooing on VR, and said, well, VR is really a subset of gaming, and just really was down on it and said it's just gaming.
Agree.
Well, but I had the same reaction, and man, he drew the angry bees of the VR Twitter crowd.
I'm sure.
Like they were all like, well, have you seen, and Kent Bye was all over him, like, have you seen this, and do you know this? But I had the same reaction, like, well, he only sees a piece of it, he doesn't see everything we see, and just like everybody else, we're ahead of the market, blah blah blah. But then, like, today, when Dave was like, hey, what's your favorite VR thing, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna say Beat Saber. Maybe I should check the store to see what else is new. And I mean, on the Quest, it's a gaming machine. It's games. It's like there's not so. I actually hold out hope that I have some renewed enthusiasm for WebXR and WebVR, because I think it actually it is really, believe me, I spent the past couple weeks really diving in on this. If you come from a game dev background and you want to try to build a game in web tech, it's a nightmare. It's a mess. But if you want to build a cool demo or something interesting that's not your traditional video game architected application,
right?
Not only are there several ways you can do that in WebXR, but you also can just deploy it, and anybody can open it on a Windows Mixed Reality or a Quest or an old ass Rift or Vive, or, in WebAR. So that's another reason why I was excited to talk a little bit about that Chrome announcement this week, because I do think about, I used to say this all the time, like this future of wearing a computer, or a computer being kind of pervasive in our space, is so much different than looking at a screen and launching apps and managing apps. And so you kind of want things to come and go as you go into like a room, or as you want to do something different. And so web pages and browsing the web, to me, fits that much more than the idea of an app and an install and download this game or download it.
Oh God, yeah, no, the what do they call it? The friction is massive.
So
there, right?
So that Benedict Evans thing, I kind of fanboy was like, he doesn't know what he's talking, but he's actually right. Like from his perspective, from the consumer perspective, VR is gaming. That's just how it's framed. I mean, Beat Saber is a game, and it's a great game, and tons of people play it, and Oculus, Oculus is curating the content towards that.
Real-time 3D has been gaming since I started working for Atari in the 90s. I mean, like they've always talked about real-time 3D as gaming, and it's been kind of poo-pooed by the VFX teams in Hollywood and stuff like that. It's like, but it is so much more than just video games.
And on top of that,
Sim is where it came from.
Video games are, I mean, we've been in this industry, or we've been associated with the video game industry long enough to remember back in the day when they said someday video games will be as big as movies. Well, that day's here. I mean, it's a bigger market, and it
was here a little while ago.
So to be a subset of games is not an insult, but I think a lot of us. I think where it comes from is a lot of us have seen the potential for it to be so much more than that. Because games, you think, like, we're also a little, this also starts the whole acronym terminology debate. We want people to love this stuff and use it and see what's cool about it, because we love working in it and building it. And we want everyone to appreciate what we appreciate. But when you hear a realistic point of view of that kind of dismisses this stuff as a toy or games or not ever going to take off, or it's niche or whatever,
right? You
want to stand up for it, but you also got to be realistic. Like, I mean, you're hearing what people are perceiving it as, so we got to show them otherwise, right?
Right. Exactly. Right. And so there's a great example. You and I used a game engine and real-time 3D to create a 7-foot rear projected touch wall at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, where people could come up and they could touch plankton, and they would get bigger and they could rotate them around. And we use all this like gaming technology to create an exhibit that people didn't even see the game. They just saw the information that we were showing them in this unique way. And we can do that with AR, with VR, with, projection mapping and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I started Torch, right? I believe some of the stigma of calling all this spatial and immersive stuff games is because a lot of the tools are rooted in game development and they're hard. So the only people that really know how to work them know how to make games. And I think we're a little bit, I'm going to brag on us a little bit. We're unique in that we aren't trying to make everything into a game. Like we're just using the tech to execute like whatever the goal of the project is. But that's how I had hoped, or I hope that with the WebXR stuff and like things like Torch, tools that let people create interactive 3D things that don't require them to deep dive in the history and baggage of game development unlocks some of these experiences. I don't want to ignore the chat because Julian in the chat made a good point. Google Earth VR. Back in the Vive days, that was the demo, right? That was like, I love how I said back in the Vive days as if that was like 10 years ago,
but forever
right
ago.
Yeah. Back when we had bricks bolted to the wall for VR. But yeah, Google Earth VR that is what everybody put like, if you were like, hey, I got a VR rig, do you want to see it? And they're like, I'm not a gamer. You put them in Google Earth VR because everybody gets that.
So my cousin's father-in-law this was like 2 years ago. He was 90 at that point. He's still kicking. I had brought the VR rig down with me to their place, and I put him in Google Earth, and that guy stood there, for like 3.5, 4 hours. We had to replace the batteries in the controllers, and he was just like, I need this. I want to have this, and I found out later that he's bored as hell. He's 92 years old. No one ever talks to him anymore. He's just like this old guy, and lives in his house, and he's like, I love this. It's amazing. Well, how can I get more? So,
and he is not going to cut up blocks at 120 beats per minute.
Yeah, right. Yeah, my girlfriend can kick his ass at Beat Saber.
But yeah, I did. I want to give a shout out to Ava. I don't know if she's still here, but she works with We Make Realities, and they tweeted earlier today about like getting people's concerns or things that they're interested about in this. And I saw somebody. It was really I saw somebody's comment as a response to that, which was like, man, I just get home and I don't want to work up a sweat jogging around my living room. I want to lay on the couch and I want to be like in another world, and I want to maybe play a game. I'm up for that, but I don't want to like have to strip down to my underwear and like drip in sweat. And it's true, right?
Can I post a picture of Jeremy in his post Beat Saber workout?
Oh, did he share that? Oh, I'm not in that group.
Oh, it's horrendous. Yeah, he's just dripping in sweat. It's just
yeah. So I mean, and it's actually, some of my I really loved the Oculus welcome demo. It's called Flashback or something like that, where you're in an RV trailer, and it's how they teach you. First Contact. So it was the original orientation experience for the Rift, and then they did port it to Quest. So if you have a Quest, you can go to the store and download First Contact. They have also created a new orientation demo for the Quest. I don't know if you did it, where you dance with the robot and all that stuff. The First Contact is really cool because it's stationary and you sit at a desk, and if you have a standing desk like I do, and you can adjust your desktop height to match the height that you feel on the where are we going? What are we doing?
I'm with you. It looks like there's people outside my house.
Uh-oh. Get them.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. So if you set your desk up right and you sit in this demo, like you can feel the desktop and it matches the desktop, and it's a very passive you're in this little environment, and you are
Right.
kind of, and it's very detailed, and it's just nice. And did I tell you about Trip, TRIPP?
No.
It's a meditation app on the Quest, and it's really fun.
You did tell me about that. Yeah.
It's really it's definitely worth doing the demo. It's free, but they want you to buy a subscription. And what you get with the subscription is the ability to customize the content to your personal self. So it's really funny because they have you do breathing exercises and go through this abstract environment. But the end scene of the exercise has you kind of do a little gratitude moment where you look at things that make you happy in your life. But because
cool.
Yeah, except because you're doing the demo, you're actually looking at someone else's babies and cats. It's
maybe
pretty
the reason
funny.
I'm happy is because I like to eat cats.
Or maybe babies. I don't know. Yeah.
You know what time it is?
Time to sign off.
It's time to build a cocktail.
Let's see. I'm going to look at the chat real quick. Let's see. John's got... Yeah, that's true. Gamers are early well, yeah. The other thing is it doesn't help having like the PlayStation VR, which is, is only ever going to, I think, do games.
Oh my God. We need to do a thing on Dreams. I have to figure out what Dreams is. I mean, I actually played with it at like an E3 like 2 years ago.
Probably 4 years ago.
But oh my God, it was amazing back then. And have you seen some of the stuff coming out of Dreams?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a it's a whole content creation engine thing. Josh has talked about it a ton. They do a lot of stuff with signed distance fields, so you get this
the whole thing is signed.
Yeah, so
there's no polygons.
Yeah, everything's super high res and cool looking. Yeah, I mean that is the interesting thing for me is coming from like an older school game dev. What
is it VR though?
No. I don't think so.
Damn it. Yeah, because when I saw it like a couple of years ago, I was like, you guys are putting this in VR, right? I mean, you have to put this in VR.
I mean, maybe eventually, but I don't think so.
No, so it's a 2D thing. Okay.
I think so. I don't see why it couldn't be. But that, like we were talking earlier about the advancement of this capture stuff. And like probably what Occipital's Canvas stuff, it is probably employing a lot of machine learning type stuff. So I come from a world of graphics APIs, polygons, shaders, and and code and algorithms that you write, and
scripts for your artist.
But the machine learning part, just kind of blows. I'm like it really blows some of that like stuff that things that would have been so difficult to do the quote unquote old school way. Like, so that is the interesting part about introducing machine learning and AI to a lot of the stuff. People use that. I think people maybe use that as a crutch or a magic solution to a lot of stuff and say, well, this will just get solved with deep learning or whatever, machine learning. But it has introduced a lot of cool possibilities very quickly that we would have had to do. I guess the other way to say it is it's allowed us to do things. You're kind of trading off the brute force. So the brute force used to be it ran in real time and you needed a fast enough CPU, GPU, and enough RAM at real time to do all the stuff you wanted to do. And what machine learning kind of introduces, and I know I'm butchering this, but you're feeding in a ton of data, and you're generating a model, and you're kind of optimizing that way, and it introduces these possibilities, like all the stuff we're seeing with segmentation and detection and object recognition and stuff to hand code that the way I would have had to done it a long time ago. It would never really work. It would just be, I mean, and what the interesting part was when we joined Magic Leap, it was just ahead of that like the computer vision people we were working with were hand building algorithm. Like they were PhDs and they were hand tuning. Like if you want to detect someone's hands, they were using math and like hand tuning for stuff. And then machine learning just kind of really disrupted a lot of that stuff. It made a lot of stuff possible that wouldn't have really been possible. Or
so for your artist and maybe other people in the audience who aren't as up to date on what that is, does that mean that offline there's a big chunk of compute that is essentially figuring out an algorithm you can put on your little cell phone that will do that task for you better? Or is that what it is? Or?
So I'm really scared because Josh is in the chat still, and his eyes are gonna roll out of his head.
Maybe we should get Josh to call in or something.
Yeah.
Get on Skype, Josh.
I do want to dive into this. I personally want to dive into this stuff more. I want to do some projects with this a bit more, so I can speak a little bit more confidently about it. But generally speaking, you are creating these networks of logic that when you feed data in, you get a result out. And so the way you evolve and it creates a model, and basically you have I'm trying to think of you basically build up a model that when you feed it in the right data set, you get the output that you're looking for. So
you have a pre-built kind of model that's on your phone that was created through a lot of effort on a bigger machine
with tons and tons of data, because you've got you feed it tons of data and you tune it to get the output you're looking for. So like you were saying, big high horsepower, but it's because it's processing tons and tons of data. So if you didn't have I'm trying to make a practical example. So right now, Unity, the AR Foundation 3.1, which is in preview right now, does people occlusion and human segmentation, right? And so for the end developer, the Unity developer, it's great because you can just turn on human segmentation and it runs that model against the live video feed. And it says, oh, that's a hand. And, oh, that's a person. And these are the pixels.
It's been trained.
Because it knows how to classify the pixels in the video feed to say, that is the thing you've trained me to look for. But to get it there, you had to test it and develop it against a massive data set, a sample data set, to get it to the point where it works.
So this is basically code creating code.
Yeah, kind of. Well, and that's the problem, because if you get a bad output or a good output, you don't necessarily know. You can't audit that back. All you can do is encourage the model that you're headed in the right direction.
Right.
If that makes sense. But
I think we should have Josh on board.
Yeah. I'm going to stop talking about it because I don't talk about stuff I don't know what I'm talking about. That's my very, very, very limited, probably wrong. That was all just wrong. Anybody that was watching this live, anybody that's watching the recording, the past 5 minutes were wrong.
Don't quote us on any of this. You can quote me, just don't quote Paul.
Spencer said everything that was in the past 5 minutes.
Right.
But I do want to work with it more, and I do have some ideas of things I want to do with it. So I will share my progress.
Cool.
As we go. But that stuff's going in the browser too. That's what's crazy. So all this TensorFlow stuff, and you can all that stuff's really exciting to me, coming out this year, or coming out starting now or recently.
Right. Well, Paul,
this was a 2-cigarette episode. Just for Eric.
It was a single cigarette episode.
Oh, okay. Well, I've seen you smoke.
Well, yeah, the previous one was before we went live. So,
all right. Yeah, let's wrap it up. Oh wait, we do need some outro music. I'll just play Nick's jingle.
XR Talk.
Yeah. Was it super loud?
I hope not, because I turned it way down. Thanks so much for, especially the people that were here the entire time and listened to us ramble. So we have the Discord. It's chat.xrtalk.net. It got off the chain this week with Eric throwing in tons of stuff for us to talk about.
Look at what is it? Resources and technology or something like
that.
that.
Resources and tools.
Yeah.
We got some inclusion. We've got some females in the chat now. We got Cami and Ava in there. That's awesome. So yeah, that's where I'm going to start trying to ask people for stuff we should talk about and ongoing stuff. Yeah, I think it's too bad that this was our fourth and final episode. Because I think we finally figured out, like, we actually only took 10 minutes to get it set up this time.
Right. There's only like a 15-minute sound check. It's good.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm blurry this whole episode. Anyway, thanks so much. We're also on Twitter at just XR Talk, and we're gonna get the website
at Muggo Paul and Spencer Lindsay.
Yep, I've got our little Twitter handles below our faces there.
Nice.
Tweet us with questions, things you want to hear us talk about, things you want to share, guests you might want to see. I think we're going to start lining those up. And this is definitely the most number of times we've seen the palm of Spencer's hand in the broadcast. And thanks for putting up with us. And I guess we'll see you we would have seen you next week.
Yeah, this wasn't the final episode.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.